Hey, be a squid and subscribe to my mediocrity.
How's it going, everybody? Today we're going to be doing just kind of a short and sweet video about Outward and some things you should do before you leave the starting area. And just to make sure nobody's confused, I'm just referring to the first map, Chersonese. This area has a bunch of stuff that you're going to want to take a look at before moving on to the next areas. So before you head out, I recommend you do these 5 things. First thing you should do is gather mana if you plan to use spells. Now, the reason I'm suggesting this is the first one is because if you're a mage person or a person that wants to mix mage and warrior, or you want to be a warrior type mage, this is important because if you leave to the next area and you start buying spells and whatnot and spending all your silver on these high-end spells that you have absolutely no mana for, then you're going to have to travel back all the way to the first area in order to get mana. So make the decision before you leave if you're going to build a mage, because if you happen to leave and go back, you're going to be very mad. And just in case you have no idea how to actually get mana, all you got to do is head to that giant purple mountain in the middle of the map, and you will notice there's going to be about 3 or 4 entrances. I can't remember how many entrances there are, but look for the one that's at the base of the hill, and it's just circle the map. Don't go up the hill. I recommend just finding the door that's at the base of the mountain, and all you got to do is head in there and then just take out all the monsters and basically fucking flip the switches, and you can head right on into the mana obtain spot, and you'll have to choose whether you want to sacrifice a huge portion of your health or just a little bit of health for your mana pool. So the more health you sacrifice, the more mana you get, and then the less health you sacrifice, obviously, vice versa. You get the point. The second thing I want you to do is build an armor set till you get an appropriate build setup. The reason I'm saying this is because you have absolutely no access to anything at the beginning. You have access to a few shield spells, and that's kind of it. There's nothing much in the starting area that's going to allow you to be a mage or to be like a hunter with archery, or a gun build, a rogue. If you want to do any of these builds, you're gonna realize that it's not really possible at the beginning of the game. You're gonna have to travel to a few different areas to make these builds possible. And so with that being said, you're gonna have to have a starting armor set to at least give you the amount of protection as well as damage necessary to get through the early stages of the game, because believe me, the early stages of the game can be pretty rough. There's some pretty hardcore monsters out there in the starting area, not to mention if you want to clear some of the harder dungeons within the starting area, a decent armor set is probably a good idea. My recommendation would be the Amylite armor. This gives you a good amount of damage, not to mention it's a light heavyweight armor set, so it also gives you a good amount of protection. This is all around the best starting armor in my personal opinion. I've already done a video on this armor set. If you want to go check that out, you can. But the easiest way to farm this armor set is to go to the beaches of Vendavel, set up a camp somewhere nearby where there's butterflies, if you can find one. If not, just guard for 24 hours or sleep like, fucking 10 hours and then guard for like 14. And then you'll be fine. You won't get anybody running up on you or anything like that. So that would be my recommendation, is farm the Amylite on the beach and then just build that armor set. The third thing I want you to do, which is probably going to sound obvious as fuck, but maybe for those of you that are unaware of how much you need, I would say collect a decent amount of cash before you leave the starting area. Now, it's probably obvious that you should have money before you leave, but the amount is probably pretty staggering. I will let you know that you can leave the starting area with roughly around 5 grand. Like no joke, depending on how dedicated you are to farming money, you can leave with about 5 grand, and at the very least, I at least recommend you leave with 2, just because in the next areas, there's a lot of armor and craftable recipes that you will be able to purchase that will give you a huge boost in performance when it comes to weapons, armor, stuff like that. Not to mention, spells are expensive. All the good spells are roughly about 500 silver or more. So yeah, you're gonna need a lot of money in order to pay this stuff off. So if you're trying to at least start your build in a certain way, whether that be a mage, hunter, gunslinger, whatever, these spells are gonna cost you upwards of around 1,500 to 2 grand. So at least to get started in the spells, you should leave Chersonese with at least 2 grand. And if you have no idea how to farm any money in this game whatsoever, let alone in the starting area, I have a guide for that. Just go ahead and look through my channel and you guys will find my guide. Not to mention there's plenty of others out there that you guys will be able to figure out. But yeah, definitely leave with a lot of money. The fourth thing I want you to do is head to the ruins in Chersonese and kill the skeleton captain. The reason you do this is because it's part of a side quest that takes you to the Abrasar Desert, which is one of the later areas in the game, and you technically need to head there anyway as you progress through the story, so you might as well take a side quest and do some treasure hunting while on the way. So that is just something I'm going to recommend always, because this side quest is pretty fun, so you might as well do it. And the absolute last thing you should do before you leave the starting area is clear Vendavel Fortress, which is priority because it's actually part of unlocking one of the chests in the Cierzo starting area. So for the most part, clear Vendavel, that's a must. And then all the other dungeons are kind of miscellaneous, but I still recommend that you clear them because there's a lot of valuables in there that you can either sell for money or use for future builds. A couple of examples would be like the rusty sword at the top of the Mana Mountain in the starting area. If you go up there, there will be a rusty sword, obviously, and you can use this to build the sword brand. And this sword is actually really fantastic. I've talked about it before in one of my Trash or Treasure episodes, and it is a fantastic sword with frost damage, and it is a bit pricey to build, but once you actually do get it, you will realize it's well worth the actual item. And if you put this in one of the treasure chests that allows you to transfer items over to your next character, starting with this sword would be an absolute godsend. It is fantastic. And another example would be the Lightmender's Lexicon, which is a part of another armor set later in the game over in the Hollowed Marsh. If you combine the Lightmender's Lexicon with the Lightmender's armor set, you will have basically never-ending mana. You will have constant mana throughout the entire game. It is legitimately a great lexicon for mages. Those are just some examples, but like I said, there's also the skeleton guy, which, you know, he doesn't necessarily drop anything crazy. It's just a quest that you can do. So clearing out and exploring all these places, you'll find a variety of different quests as well as items that will give you either a good laugh or something to look forward to later in the game. So I highly recommend you explore the entire area and clear everything out before you move on to the next areas. And even when you do move on to the next areas, I recommend you do the exact same thing, because you might be missing out on something that you may or may not find valuable, or if anything else, just sell it for money, because fucking money runs the game. All right, this episode was a bit long, so I apologize for that. I kind of wanted to make this into 5 minutes, but turns out I don't know how to shut up. So I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye bye.